So this woman, her name's Beth, and Beth has a huge problem. She's just been kidnapped and locked away, and it doesn't look like she's getting out. So Beth just turned 18. She lives at home with her mom and dad, and she really isn't getting along with her dad. Her dad is this guy, who we'll call Satan. So Beth and Satan are always fighting. Their relationship is just not going well. And one day, Satan's had enough, and he comes up with this crazy plan. He goes to Beth, and he asks her to help him down in the cellar with this door he's working on. So they go down into the cellar, and once she's down there, suddenly, boom, he grabs her face with a towel soaked in ether, and it immediately makes her pass out. Sometime later that day, she wakes up, and she appears to be locked in some kind of underground chamber. So what is this underground chamber? So Satan, I guess, is a bit of a survivalist, and underneath their house, they have this cellar. And for years, he's been working on turning it into a bomb shelter. This bomb shelter runs deep and has multiple rooms in it. And in one of those rooms deep in the cellar, there's a bookshelf. And behind that bookshelf is a secret chamber. And Beth is now locked in that secret chamber, and there's no way for her to get out. And at some point, Satan comes down into the chamber to see her. And she's like, "Why did you lock me in here? Let me out." And he's like, "Nope." And he leaves her there. Now this little secret chamber she's in, it's really small, but it's livable. It has a little kitchen, a little bathroom, and 2 little bedroom areas. So anyway, a bit of time passes, and pretty quickly Beth's mom notices she's missing. And she's like, "Where's Beth?" And Satan's like, she ran away and joined a cult." And mom is devastated, like, how could Beth do this? Not knowing her daughter is actually a prisoner locked deep in a cellar below her house. And from this point on, for whatever reason, Satan decides he's gonna leave Beth in there indefinitely. And he's gonna keep it a secret from everyone. So every day or so, he sneaks away from his family and he goes down into the cellar. And he goes into that little chamber and he brings Beth food and supplies and stuff. But that's not the only thing he does. He also essays her, like, a lot. It's horrible. And this goes on for like 4 or 5 years. And he still hasn't let her out. And at this point, she's been essayed by Satan so many times, she gets pregnant. So then she eventually has the baby, like in this secret chamber. And she raises the baby down there, 'cause he won't let her out. And another year goes by and he gets her pregnant again. So now she has 2 kids down there. Then a few years later, you guessed it, pregnant again, a 3rd time. But this baby, Satan decides to take it upstairs. And he leaves it on the doorstep of his own house, and he tells his wife it's a foundling. He tells her this bullshit story that Beth had run away from home, got pregnant, and came back just to abandon the baby on her parents' doorstep, so that she wouldn't have to take care of it. So Beth's mom believes this story, and she's like, "Okay, I'll raise this baby." Then, a year later, Beth gets pregnant again, and has a 4th baby down in the cellar. And again, Satan takes it upstairs and tells his wife it's a foundling, and she believes him and agrees to raise it. And this goes on for years, and Beth ends up having 7 kids down in that cellar. But one of them dies in childbirth, so she has 6 kids. And 3 of them, Satan tricks his own wife, Beth's mom, into raising them, while the other 3 live downstairs locked in the cellar with Beth. Those 3 cellar kids have been living in captivity their whole life. They've never been outside. The oldest one is 19 years old and has never even seen the sun. So the 19-year-old, we'll just call her 19. One day, down in the cellar, she gets sick. Like, really sick. Like, she's so sick she isn't even conscious. And when Satan comes down to check on them, Beth is like, "19 is sick, please take him to the hospital." And she begs him. And eventually he agrees. So Satan secretly carries 19 out of the cellar and he puts her in his car. And he drives her to the hospital for treatment. There, doctors see her and they're immediately like, "Where's this girl's mother?" And Satan's like, "We don't know where the mother is. She joined a cult and abandoned her daughter and left her with us." Then, as 19 is there in the hospital getting treatment, she falls into a coma. So doctors, in order to treat her, they desperately need more info about her medical history. Info that Satan doesn't have. So they call police and ask them to find 19's mother. So then police, they put out a missing persons report looking for Beth. They're holding press conferences with the media, calling for Beth to come forward, saying that her daughter's gonna die if they don't get more info about her medical history. And Beth, who's still locked down in the cellar, she has a little TV down there. And she sees police on TV holding this press conference. So she knows they're looking for her. So the next time Satan comes down into the cellar, she begs him to let her out so that she can go to the hospital and see 19 and give doctors the info they need. And eventually, reluctantly, Satan agrees. But he tells her, if anyone asks you where you've been all these years, you have to tell them you just escaped from a cult. So then he sneaks Beth and the other 2 kids out of the cellar, and he drives them to the hospital. Now remember, this is the first time the kids have ever been in a car. It's the first time they've ever been outside. So they all get to the hospital, and immediately police detain Beth. And they're gonna charge her with child abuse because they believe she abandoned 19 and joined a cult. But once they separate her from Satan and get her talking, she reveals everything. The entire truth. And police are shocked at this story. Because when all is said and done, Beth had been locked in that secret chamber in the cellar for 24 years. She went in when she was 18 and came out when she was 42. She also tells them that Satan had SA'd her over 3,000 times. So they arrest Satan. He eventually admits to everything. Here's what he looks like in real life. Ugh. He goes to trial, and he's sentenced to life in a psychiatric prison. Now, the good news is 19 ultimately survived. Like, she wakes up from her coma. And Beth and the 6 kids, who are all adults now, they're all doing fine, and they're trying to live a normal life in Austria. And I wish them all well. Shout out to Austria. So this woman unalives her husband and then blames it on her own daughter. Now, her name's Stacy, and one day, Stacy falls in love and she gets married. But unfortunately, the guy dies of a heart attack. Then, about a year later, she finds love again when she meets this guy, David. And eventually, Stacy and David get married. And things, I guess, are going well. Until they're not. Because one day, Stacy and David get into a horrible fight. Like, it's really bad. Like, the fight lasts 7 hours. That bad. And David gets so mad, he eventually locks himself in their bedroom with a bottle of alcohol. Because he doesn't want to see anyone. So Stacy and the kids, they all go stay elsewhere to let David cool off. And 3 days go by, and David is still locked in the bedroom. And Stacy hasn't heard from him, so she calls 911 to have them go over there and do a wellness check.
Police communications, can I help you? My husband didn't show up to work this morning. I don't know what's going on.
So police and paramedics, they go there and they knock, but there's no response, so they end up kicking the bedroom door down, and that is where they find David on the bed, unalived. And they also find an empty bottle of antifreeze under the bed. And they see a glass of it on the nightstand next to a bottle of alcohol. So it looks like David just unalived himself with some antifreeze. And Stacy confirms that, yeah, he had been depressed. And it's unfortunate, but it looks like it's an open and shut case of suicide. Until some of the detectives who are working on the case, they're not really buying the whole suicide thing. Because strangely, in David's will, he left all of his money to Stacy and her daughters, while leaving nothing to his own biological son from his previous marriage. And this shocks everyone. So police start thinking this might have been a homicide. They get to work investigating. Now, there are multiple detectives working on this case, but there's one main guy. This guy, Detective Spinelli. And just to make this story less confusing, I'm going to make Spinelli stand in for all the different detectives working on this case. So Spinelli launches a full investigation, and it seems like he suspects Stacy might have poisoned David with antifreeze. And Spinelli's like, I want to talk to Stacy's first husband, see if he'll give me the tea. But unfortunately, as we already saw, Stacy's first husband has already passed away from a heart attack. Or did he? So Spinelli's like, alright, that's weird. And he petitions the court to get first husband's body exhumed. And it takes a while, like 2 years go by, but they finally grant him permission. And so they exhume the body, and when the autopsy report comes back, first husband's insides are loaded with crystals, which is a telltale sign of antifreeze poisoning. And Spinelli's like, I knew it! This bitch killed both her husbands with antifreeze! So they bring Stacy in for questioning, and Spinelli doesn't really get much out of her. But he's not giving up. He goes out and he finds Stacy's daughter, who had just started college. And we'll just call her Daughter. So he goes to Daughter's college to talk to her, and he informs her that when her dad died all those years ago, it wasn't from a heart attack. He actually died from antifreeze poisoning. And Daughter freaks out, like, what? Dad died of antifreeze poisoning? And she calls her mom. And Stacy's like, how dare the police harass you? But she's also like, hey, life is hard. Let's have a drink when you get home. So eventually Daughter goes home, and she and her mom, Stacy, end up having a drink together, which Stacy prepares. But then, after one drink, Daughter's suddenly tired, and she goes to bed. The next morning, Daughter's sister goes into the bedroom and finds her there in the bed, barely breathing. So she runs to her mom and she's like, Daughter's not breathing, call 911. So Stacy calls 911 and police and paramedics get there and they discover that Daughter had left a suicide note, which basically says, I'm gonna unalive myself, but it also confesses that she is the one who unalived her dad and her stepdad with antifreeze. And it says that police should stop investigating her mom. Here's the thing though, Daughter isn't quite dead yet, and paramedics get there with enough time to rush her to the hospital and save her. And they find that Daughter had also ingested antifreeze, but luckily she survives. And pretty much as soon as Daughter wakes up, Spinelli's there and he's like, oh, tell me more about your suicide note and why you unalived your father and your stepfather. And Daughter's like, what the f***? fuck? I never tried to unalive myself or anyone else. And Spinelli shows her the suicide note, and she's like, I didn't write that. Which makes sense, because daughter has at least somewhat of a college education, and whoever wrote this note appears to be allergic to punctuation. Like, there's not a single comma or period in it. Like, it drives me nuts. Like, grammar check your suicide notes, people. Come on. Anyway, here's what really happened. Back in the day, Stacy unalives her first husband with antifreeze. Then she gets remarried and unalives her second husband with antifreeze. And when police get too close, she then tries to unalive her own daughter with antifreeze, and then blame all the murders on her daughter by writing a fake suicide note. They also find Stacy's fingerprints on the glass of antifreeze next to David's bed, and they find multiple drafts of daughter's suicide note on Stacy's computer. So police arrest her, here's her mugshot, they charge her with the murder of David and with the attempted murder of her daughter, but I guess they don't have enough evidence to charge her with her first husband's murder. Regardless, she's convicted and sentenced to just over 51 years in prison. And about 7 years into her sentence, she dies of a heart attack. Womp womp. Shout out to New York.